Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today what I want to talk about are watches that I think are above the Holy Trinity. And these are actually watch companies, watchmakers, and so on and so forth. Now I have nothing against the Holy Trinity. I'm wearing my Vacheron Constantin Historiques Americain 1921, I think. So nothing against them. But these watches are, I believe, are superior in certain ways. A lot of them are handmade, and you can't mass produce a watch and have any, it's almost impossible to do because you need too many really excellent watchmakers. And so the numbers are often lower in terms of the numbers produced, and the prices tend to be higher. Now, some of the criteria that I used, the main one is that each one of these companies with the mechanical watch and are these watchmakers, they were very concerned about constant force. And constant force in a mechanical watch is what keeps it ticking along. As a result, just about all of them have made tourbillons, but they've also had remontois d'égalités. Some even have had resonance watches, and so there are a lot of innovation. So let's get started and take a look, because like I said, I got 10 of them, and there's probably at least 10 more that I'll get to at some other time. Okay, the first one, I think, now these are ones that I think are above the sort of the status of the Holy Trinity. This isn't to say anything bad about Holy Trinity, it's just to say something about some of these other ones. First one is F.P. Journe. F.P. Journe's work was very much followed in the steps of Abraham Louis Breguet. And he was a great fan of George Daniels, whose book on what's called The Art of Breguet was something that he felt was very important to understand, and his watches reflected that. One of his first watches was a remontois d'égalité. Not a remontois d'égalité. He did those too, but a chronomètre résonance. This is one of the first ones. Now, there was Abraham Breguet had done one. In fact, he had made a total of 3 of them, but I think in the modern times, F.P. Journe was the first one to tackle it. Another one that this is a couple things, is Carré Vuitton. Carré Vuitton's watches are good on so many different levels. He's won Grand Prix prizes for several different categories. You know, if you're really good with chronometers or with one type of watch, or you can do the sort of the artistic part of it, the really pretty dials or some other kind of design element, he does them all. He's won Grand Prix awards for just about every category, and deservedly so. His watches are very expensive. I think they start around $70,000, but they are really incredible. And he has done a number of different elements to it that he has done that just incredible in terms of having watches for looking for the constant force. Now, the third one, and the problem with Roger Smith isn't that they're expensive, but they are, but rather you can't get them. He only makes about 10 a year, maybe 11. That's all. He makes all of them by hand. He starts off with a rod of gold and works that out into a case, and everything else he makes by hand. He was an apprentice to George Daniels. His work is just amazing. He lives on the Isle of Man. No one will bother him, I think. Anyhow, he's another one. This is way over anything Holy Trinity has. Now, one of the other ones that these 2 brothers in the Netherlands, they're both very talented watchmakers. They come from a family of watchmakers, and they're Groenfeld. And they have a whole series from a 1 Hertz watch to Ones like this one is that a Remontois. This is called the Remontois, 1941. Again, incredible watch. And other watches, too. They have a whole series of them. And again, I'd much rather have one of their watches than anything that the Holy Trinity has. Now, two guys, Robert Gribel and Stephen Forsey, their tagline is the art of invention, and they do that. They have several things they've invented, and this name of this watch is handmade, which is like most of them are, and just sort of beautiful craftsmanship. And I think one of the things about these types of watches is that it's sort of like getting an original Picasso versus getting a copy. All of the things they have are originals, are pretty close to it. Now, this next one, Hajime Asoka, his stuff is perfection. Hajime is from Japan. He does beautiful watches on every level. He has really great dials. He has en glace on the, you flip it over and you see this beautiful movement. He likes to use big balance wheels, which I think is the way to go. Really great watches that he has. Now, this Marco Lang is unusual in one sense because he has a whole set of watches. He worked in his own company for about, it was close to 17 years or so. Had a company called Lang and Heim, and I think it started around 2001. And he and a guy named, I think it was Miko Hein, started the company, and after a year, Miko left. Well, from that time until 2018, when Marco left, he created this whole series of these incredible watches and used just about every kind of constant force mechanism, tourbillons, the Remontois, just everything. Really incredibly talented. Well, after he left, his watches are still being sold by Lang and Heim. There was some financial thing that I think they bought the company, and so he went away for a few years. And just recently, literally a few days ago, he started a new company called Marco Lang Watches, and he came out with this. The first one that he made was just incredible. It was it means two faces, Viter something, Zweisig, I think is what it was. It means two faces. So he has one watch, and you flip it over, and the lugs come out, and you just flip it over and have it on the other side. You wear it with two different faces. And of course, the movement itself is really amazing. He added a sort of a bump regulator, not a regulator, but a recorder. So every time you bump it, you can get an idea of how much force is getting banged around. Beautiful watches. Now, this next one is by Cyril Bravenado. He's a young guy, a very young guy. His watches, though, are just, they're works of art. That's the only way to describe them. And he's carrying on very much a tradition of Abraham Louis Breguet, like F.P. Journe to a great extent. And another thing that he has is that the watch, I don't know if he has any that are made with keyless works. His watches require a key to wind up. Now, in George Daniels' famous work called Watchmaking, all of the watches are wind up. I didn't realize that until recently. But these, the watches by Cyril Bravenado are just really amazing. Now, he's a very young guy, like I said, and he's the guy to watch. I mean, his watches are already like way, way expensive, but still, he's someone that if you're a serious watch collector, keep an eye on. Now, Daniel Roth is a well-known watchmaker, and he's had a long career. And he what he did at this point in his career, and I don't know how long it's been going on, but he changed the name of his company from Daniel Roth, which was owned by somebody else now, to Jean Daniel Nicolas, which is his son, his wife, I think, and himself. So he can, nobody else has that name. And what he does, he makes these tourbillons. I think they're triple tourbillons or something. They're incredible. Now, also, too, what you need to know about Daniel Roth, he was the guy that really brought back Breguet. He was hired to sort of bring Breguet back to the kind of quality that I think was envisioned by Abraham Breguet. And he went and he did it. He worked with him for about 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and there was some kind of financial mess that the guys running it got into, and so he left and started up his own company called Daniel Roth, and then that was funded or bought by somebody else. And he went for a year with Bulgari, and there are a couple of their watches. I don't think they used his talents very well, but that's my opinion. And so now, there are two kinds of watches you can get from Daniel Roth. One, if you have $100,000 and you get on his good side, he'll make you this incredible tourbillon watch, like the one that's pictured, through the company called Jean Daniel Nicolas. On the other hand, you can find some of from when it was Daniel Roth, and from the early 2000s. You can find watches with his name on it, and some of his movements are some other really good movements. I have, for example, this chronograph with an El Primero movement. I can't afford these newer ones. Now, finally, this was Jean-Marc Viter, in my opinion, is probably the greatest living watchmaker. And it was 2007. The Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève decided, well, we're going to have a watchmaker of the year. And it turned out to be Jean-Marc Viter. Well, if you look around, you're not going to find any watches that have Jean-Marc Viter's name on them, but you're going to find a whole lot of watches with the complication that he made. I have a couple of watches like that, and I have a watch with actually one of his movements that he made for Van Cleef and Arpels, and it's just incredible. Now, the one picture there is called the Agengraph. The name of his company is Agenor, and this chronograph he made was like literally revolutionary in mechanical watchmaking. It's the kind of stuff that he does. And he was recognized early on, even though you're not going to find either a watch by Agenhor or one that says Jean-Marc Viter. If I was a watchmaker, I'd hire him and then put his name on it to be sure he's recognized. So all of these, the watches, for example, I think Singer Reimagined has one of these fabulous movements in it. Van Cleef and Arpels, a lot of those one has the entire movement, and then some of the other ones have some kind of complication. He also did work for Harry Winston's, and some for Hermes. And so you have these companies that come along and they win all these prizes, and then you find out that Jean-Marc Viter and Agenor did the movement for it. So this is another one that I have just like, you can't compare those. I mean, these are just set at another level than your Holy Trinity. And I like Holy Trinity watches. It's just, these have something additional to it. And I think worth thinking about at some point, at least one of them in your collection. Okay, well, listen, I guess this is coming out on Christmas Day 2020, where most of us are isolated and so forth. So I will wish you a Merry Christmas. And until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Sci, the Art and Science of Watch Collection.